The riots have backfired as support for BLM implodes and a red wave sweeps Florida. In this video, we're going to take a look at the crumbling support for BLM, how all the riots are built on nothing but lies, and how a massive surge in support for President Trump and the GOP in Florida may be the biggest backlash yet against the warriors of wokeness. You are not going to want to miss this one. Greetings, everyone. Patriots all across the globe. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you. As always, a very warm welcome to all of our first-time viewers. We post 2 videos a day analyzing current events, analyze some super awesome conservative trends so we can all live in the present in light of even better things to come. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. It'll be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of this channel, where each and every day we together celebrate the inevitable collapse of left-wing globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. I want to give a huge shout out to the website Planet Free Media for including our channel in their top 20 conservative YouTube channels. It's a great site, and you can check them out at the link below. They are very, very appreciated. And finally, make sure to click on that link below and head on over to my special website for my Patriot food supply. As we saw with the whole pandemic insanity, we cannot wait for an emergency to happen before we respond to one, and no one makes preparing for an emergency more ridiculously easy and affordable than my Patriot supply. Gang, they're simply the best. They're good friends of this channel. Their food kits last up to 25 years in storage, include breakfast, lunches, and dinners. And best of all, they've got a guarantee policy that will absolutely knock your socks off. And if you act now, you can save $100 off a full 4-week emergency food supply when you click on the link below to my special website. You heard that right. 100 smackers off. So do not wait. I've got my food supply. Make sure you get yours. Click on that link below or go to preparewithsteve.com and save $100 off your very own 4-week emergency food supply today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. We have got 2 major stories that I think they're reciprocal of one another. The dynamics that are propelling the one are the same dynamics operative in the other. So what we're finding is not only support for BLM, Black Lives Matter, what we called as of yesterday black leftist mobs. Not only are we seeing a massive implosion in support for BLM, but we're seeing a stunning surge in support for the GOP in Florida. So let's look at each of these in turn and see how they're reciprocal of one another. So first, Fox News is reporting that support for BLM protests has absolutely imploded among every single racial demographic. Now, this, of course, is coming on the heels of renewed rioting and violence in Louisville following the grand jury decision not to charge any of the police officers involved in the shooting death of Breonna Taylor. Now, interestingly, and I think this is key, interestingly, the extensive poll was taken before the rioting broke out in response to the Breonna Taylor verdict. So we can only imagine that these numbers have since fallen even further. But according to the Associated Press survey, 44% of Americans now disapprove of protests in response to supposed police violence against blacks. Only 39% approve. Now, just to give you a sense of how far things have fallen here, in June, 54% of Americans approved of the protest. So we've gone from a 54% approval down to a 39% approval, a drop of almost 20 points, which is horrific, right? You don't get more unpopular than dropping nearly 20 points. It's a massive implosion in support. In terms of the breakdown around racial demographics, we're seeing a drop in support across the board. As far as whites are concerned, only 35% of white Americans approve of the protest. That's down from 50% disapproved. Again, by comparison, just a few months back in June, 53% of whites approved, so it's down from 53%. So support among whites has dropped a comparable 20 points. Among Latinos, it's even worse. Only 31% approved the protests. Yes, and I feel even ridiculous referring to them as protests, but I got to report the survey, as they conducted it. So only 31% of Latinos support the protests, as compared to 44% support in June. And even among blacks, support for these protests has eroded from 81% support in June now to only 63%. Again, almost a 20-point drop. Now, here's something that is so interesting to me. 84% of black Americans still believe that police use deadly force more often against a black person than a white person. 84% of blacks believe that. Only 42% of whites believe that. Latinos are half and half, 50%. Now, the reason why I say this is interesting is that this notion that cops use deadly force against blacks more often than they do against whites has been completely and totally debunked by a number of scholars. The Manhattan Institute scholar Heather McDonald and a number of other scholars, particularly Harvard scholar Roland Fryer, who is himself black, have debunked that assertion beyond a reasonable doubt. It's more than just untrue at this point. It's a flat-out lie. It's a lie to come out and say that unarmed black men are more likely to be killed by white police officers than any other racial demographic. It's simply not true. As Heather McDonald has noted, the Washington Post's own investigation into police shootings found that in 2019, there were 9 unarmed blacks shot by police as compared to 19 unarmed whites. So unarmed whites were twice as likely to be shot by police than blacks. And this stat is even more significant given the fact that blacks are responsible for 53% of the murders and 60% of robberies in 2018. We don't have the crime stats for 2019 yet. In terms of overall police shootings, blacks make up about 25% of those shot by police, even though they're responsible for well over 50% of all crime. So this whole absurdity of appealing to disparity indicators, right? Do you know disparity indicators? Okay, so that's when you get things like this. Well, when you say that whites are twice as likely to get shot by police than blacks, you're wrong because blacks only make 13% of the population, whereas whites are 60%. So that means that blacks are actually infinitely more prone to being shot than whites. So this is what's known as disparity indicators, and it's a common ploy among cultural Marxists. So you compare whatever stat you're dealing with in proportion to the population of that minority group, the percentage of the population they make up as a whole, and then you account for the discrepancy by appealing to some kind of racism or discrimination alike. Again, it's absolute bunk. Disparity indicators are patent nonsense. Whenever a person brings up this notion that blacks are disproportionately shot more than whites when compared to their percentage of the overall population, all you have to do is just point out that by the same logic then, 50% of all police shootings should involve shooting women. Or 50% of the prison population should be women, right? It's the exact same thing. And it's absurd. The question is not what's the percentage of blacks in terms of the population of the whole. The question is what's the percentage of blacks who commit violent crimes? Because those are the ones who are most likely to get shot by police. That's the risk you take when you commit violent crimes. Stop breaking the law. It has nothing to do with the young black kid studying in his room for his SATs. In fact, we have data that shows that police are actually more hesitant to shoot black suspects than they are white suspects. It's an absolute lie to perpetuate this notion that black suspects are being inordinately or disproportionately targeted by police officers as an extension of systemic racism. It's been debunked over and over again. And yet I'm sad to say, according to this AP survey, 84% of blacks still believe that cops use deadly force against blacks more often than they do against whites. 84% of blacks still believe in this lie. Now, while all of this is going on, this plunge in support for BLM, something amazing is going on in the key swing state of Florida. But first, of course, we're in an election year, and of all presidential elections, few were as stunning as the election of Donald Trump 4 years ago. But how could so many of our elites, from the mainstream media to political pundits, how could so many of them have been so wrong about 2016 and still not get it in 2020? Well, that's what my book, President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future, explores. In its pages, you'll discover precisely what our political class missed and what they continue to miss. That the election of Donald Trump was nothing less than a symbol of the end of secular globalism as our dominant political paradigm. And so throughout this book, you'll discover the various ways in which Trump's nationalist populism is redefining politics, for the foreseeable future. How do you like that, right? And to make it even better, for a limited time, you can get my book, President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future, absolutely free as an ebook download by simply clicking on the link in the pinned comments section below. You heard that right. You're going to get this absolutely free, but it's a limited time offer, so do not wait. Click on that link in the pinned comments section and get your free copy of my book, President Trump and Our Post-Secular Future, today. All right, gang, so let's dive into Florida. Now, if you don't know, many pundits believe that Florida is the key to the 2020 election, okay? He who wins Florida will win the election. In this sense, Florida is becoming the new Ohio. Ohio has traditionally been the bellwether state for determining who is going to win the election. Now it's Florida. And what's going on in Florida is pretty darn amazing. Politico is reporting that for whatever reason, there is nothing short of a massive surge in voter registration enthusiasm and support for the Republicans sweeping across the state of Florida. Right now, as we speak, Republican voter registration in Florida has added about 58,000 new voters, which represents a 41% advantage over new Democrats in Florida. And one of the major reasons for this is that Trump is absolutely killing it among Latinos. Now, you probably saw this poll from Florida. Trump is beating Biden with Latinos, 50% to 46%. And that's a big reason why Trump has taken the lead in Florida. According to the new, and this is key, Washington Post ABC poll, President Trump is now leading Biden by 4 points, 51 to 47% in Florida. But again, in terms of our analysis, I think the key to understanding the surge in support for Trump among Latinos goes back to that AP study that found that Latinos, more than anyone else, any other demographic, no longer supported BLM and the so-called protests. Support for BLM never rose above 44% among Latinos, according to the AP survey. Most Latinos just don't buy this stuff. They simply don't buy it, and it appears that they are indeed reacting to this in terms of a rather predictable backlash. And this backlash is precisely what studies found was the inevitable result of race riots, as we point out in numerous videos. A recent Princeton study found that riots and acts of civil violence and destruction have the effect of making America more conservative. An assistant professor of the Department of Politics at Princeton recently published a paper concluding that the political effects of riots consistently benefit the political right. And I think we're seeing this play itself out right before our very eyes. We talked about this just yesterday's video, particularly among Latinos. They're fed up with this insurrection nonsense. They're fed up, as we all are, with this mob rule mentality that says that if we don't like a grand jury decision, then we get to burn cities down. We're all done with this tribalistic mentality that cares nothing, not a freaking whit about the good of our nation. And so just 6 weeks out, we may indeed be seeing right in front of our very eyes the inevitable results on November 3rd. Now, before you go, make sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. And you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on how the New York Times is absolutely panicking about the 2020 election as Joe Biden's campaign begins to implode. You're not going to want to miss this, so make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.